Do you remember Calum and Donnacha? They were in the Late Late Show with Ryan Tubridy back in April, and they stole the heart of the nation. One of the twins, Callum, is deaf, and in the interview on the Late Late Show, they shared their experience of deaf education in Ireland. Deaf people don't have the same opportunities and access to education and employment as the hearing community because of the lack of employment and education through Irish Sign Language. As Andrew describes it, the deaf community often lives on a total island on our island, and us, the hearing community, often know very little about it. Andrew is a great advocate for his son's right in deaf education. Their appearance in the Late Late Show was inspirational, and I wanted to learn more about their case. Callum is now in 6th class and with no access to an ISL interpreter, and all that Andrew is asking for is equal access to secondary education. Welcome to today's interview. Brilliant. So welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Brilliant. I'm delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
And Andrew, tell us a little bit about Callum and Callum's education. Is he in mainstream school, and what resources are out there for children who are deaf or hard of hearing?
Calum attends a deaf unit, which is part of mainstream school. It's in Douglas, in Cork City. It's St. Columba's. There's a boys, a girls' school, and a deaf unit all on one campus. And it's an excellent school. He's been going there since he was 4, so he'll be there almost 9 years now. When you begin at 4, it starts at 1 day a week, building up towards 5 days over the months that are left in that school year. So he loves school and has enjoyed his school time a lot. And it's a good school, but children like Callum are really rare now because he has no auditory nerve at all. He is the 1% of the 1%. So even among deaf children, there are only less than 100 in the island of Ireland that would be primary Irish Sign Language users. In all of the deaf children that are here, there's approximately tens of thousands probably of people that are deaf, or perhaps more, but between primary and secondary school, there's only between 77 and 91 or maybe 100, depending which report you read. So basically, he needs fluent teaching through sign language, Silvia, and that's not been happening in his education.
And you say that it's rare because a lot of children, they may have a cochlear implant,
Yes.
This is not an option for Callum.
Yeah. Like those children can benefit from digital hearing aids or cochlear implants, and because he has no hearing nerve at all, none of those technologies are appropriate for him. We did travel the world 10 years ago to try to give him some environmental sound through another piece of technology, but ultimately it never worked. And we travelled to America, Warsaw, Italy, and to the UK mainly. And ultimately that piece of technology didn't give him access to any sound. So it was part of the journey.
Yeah. And so then he spends some time in his special class, but
Yes.
then he also spends some time with other children the same age. And one question, is that your local school?
No. We live in a small village in North Cork between the towns of Fermoy and Mallow. It's a small village called Ballyhooly where all of his brothers went to school. So his school is a 45-minute drive away from where we live. That's in Cork City, and he would have mixed in some classes with mainstream school. That hasn't happened in recent years. When he had the interpreter, which he had for only 2 years of his 9 years in primary school, well then it was possible for him to go into a mainstream class because the interpreter was able to bring the subject, especially maths, which he's very good at, to life. But as soon as the interpreter was gone, that option for him to go and attend mainstream class was again no longer an option for him and for us. And so that was an opportunity, and he enjoyed that. He loves people, loves meeting new friends, and he just enjoys meeting and making new friends.
And why do you think that it's important? Well, I certainly believe in inclusion, but why do you think that it's important for Callum to have the opportunity to be with other children the same age, not necessarily deaf children, but all the kids in the community?
Ultimately, we hope that he will play his part in both hearing and deaf communities, and that he will be a bridge there. Quite often our deaf community can get locked in an island, which they appropriately call deaf space. But sometimes some deaf people are on that island without choice, and we want him to have that choice as he reaches his potential to be part of the deaf and hearing communities, and let him choose that he's not defined by his deafness. And he goes to athletics every Tuesday and Thursday with his twin brother Donnacha. And again, that's part of the hearing world. And Donnacha sometimes acts as the interpreter, sometimes it's Helen, sometimes it may be me. But again, he wants to go out there and be part of the bigger community and the bigger world. And it's very good for children. It's really good for children that don't have special needs to interact, because then it allows them to see another world and allows them to develop their emotional and empathetic intelligence and social intelligence, and that flows both ways, because we want Callum to love the hearing world as much as he loves the deaf world. That's important for us.
So tell me, Andrew, what is next for Callum? He is 12 years of age now, is he?
Yes.
Yes. So he's looking to move to secondary school?
Yes, next September, hopefully. So we've had an ongoing campaign, as your viewers probably know, Silvia, and it's been ongoing for 6 years now. We've been campaigning to get a sign language interpreter in the classroom, because we realised 6 years ago that he wasn't gaining full fluency in the classroom through no fault of the brilliant teachers. They have quite often dedicated themselves to learning sign language on their own time, but their fluency isn't part of their job spec for any school for the deaf. I read works by deaf education experts worldwide, especially works by Mark Marshark, Elizabeth Spencer, Elizabeth Matthews from DCU, Lorraine Leeson, and John Bosco Conema from our own Trinity College Dublin, and lots of other experts. And I realised, Silvia, that your child's teacher should be so far ahead of them that they're stimulating them to reach their potential every minute. And he's had brilliant teachers, but sometimes for them to communicate what he needs in the curriculum would need a university degree in sign language to be at that level. And so it's been a constant battle with the Department of Education. As I said to you earlier, we did get it through a huge campaign 6 years ago for 2 years, but those people were employed under SNA contracts despite being Trinity College graduates. And we all know that's a difficulty, and Callum's sign language has gone to such a level now. He needs someone at a full fluency, and that's what all the research says, Silvia. You need someone at the absolute top level of sign language to be able to communicate. Like, one thing I think you and I both noticed during the lockdown was the curriculum our children are learning. So we saw that the maths, the English books especially. So as I said to the principal last September, ask inside in that classroom, can anyone explain to Callum the sign in Irish Sign Language for an isosceles triangle? Now ask them, what's the sign for decimal, fraction, conjunction? Simple terms. They're just the easy ones. And then let's go across to the English curriculum in 5th and 6th class. Ask them, do they have the Irish Sign Language sign for adverb? Do they have adjective, noun, the easy ones? Now explain what the context of what's the author's philosophy in the piece of English we're learning today. And that's just in 5th and 6th class. So basically, we're running 3 parallel roads at the moment, Silvia. We've been on the motorway for the last 6 years, and then for the last 12 months, we've been on a Formula 1 track. And we now find ourselves contemplating going into the Irish High Court to fight for Callum's educational rights under the Constitution, his rights under the 1998 Education Act, his rights under Section 5 of the Irish Sign Language Act commenced last December by the President, and his rights under the UNCRPD and CRC and the European Court of Human Rights. So it's a huge battle. It's been hugely draining and frustrating, but I think every parent wants to give their child full access to language. We all want to be able to communicate with our children. We obviously love our children dearly, and we just want them to reach their potential, not for someone to draw a line in the sand and decide that's your child's potential. Sorry, that's not the way I'm built. That's not what a democracy is about. That's not what citizenship is about. The founders of this country, over 100 years ago, referred to children as citizens. In their first documents ever, they referred to children as citizens. So they weren't even looking at them as a future resource. They were talking about them in the present. And that's what this whole aim is. It's just that Callum, when he goes to secondary school, that he can access the 9 or 10 subjects he does for his junior cert through full fluency. That it's not guesswork. And we're not looking for a lot, Silvia. We're not looking for a deaf teacher of the deaf in every subject. That did happen 100 years ago. Callum's great-great-great-grandfather, Cornelius Geary, was also deaf. He could read and write when none of his hearing family could read and write, because he had deaf teachers of the deaf. We're not going to get that. They're in DCU at the moment training. But we just want an interpreter to stand next to the teacher to ensure he gets what's going on in that classroom, that the complex terms aren't lost on his eyes.
So he can have full access to education like any other children his age. Yeah.
And it's only a language. That's all we're talking about. It's just that Donnacha learns through English and through Irish. Callum learns through Irish Sign Language. And he needs someone, as you've explained to me, Silvia, you're fluent in Catalan. Unless you got a degree in Barcelona to teach that as a subject, well then, we don't expect you to teach it. And the same as Irish speakers born in Dingle, we don't allow them to teach Irish. I want someone that's qualified in Irish Sign Language and that has a good fluency and flow to the language, that brings the language to life. Because as you've seen, Silvia, through your own classes, it's a beautiful language. It's absolutely beautiful. When it's brought to life, it's just absolutely amazing. It's just, wow, you just want to learn more and more. Every minute, every day, you want to learn more and more. Science is just, a beautiful language.
Absolutely. As you know, I'm a love tutor. Love is different to Irish Sign Language, but because I love signing, then a couple of years ago, I decided to start learning sign language. And I'm working with a teacher. His name is Ryan. He's a deaf man, highly intelligent, and very well-educated man. And to me, it was eye-opening, really, that experience to realize how difficult it is, inclusion for deaf people. Simple things. And again, I'm stressing that my teacher, Brian, he's highly educated, studied in Trinity. And I remember the second time I met him, he was all, frustrated because he had been to the bank. He needed to do just a very simple transaction and he just couldn't communicate with the lady. And I suppose that there was a misunderstanding there. So he had to then go back with somebody else to translate. And it made me realize how difficult it can be and how isolated that community is. As you're saying, it's like an island within an island.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible or is realistic to think that people, the community now in general, that we should all learn some Irish Sign Language? Because again, sometimes we're learning languages and I think we can't communicate with actually, with
our own citizens.
In our own country.
There's no reason, Silvia, that this language cannot be put on the primary school curriculum as an introduction, as is happening this year with a 6-week introduction course. There's no problem whatsoever with putting that in place. And Callum and all children for the deaf should have a whole curriculum to learn sign language in primary school. Believe it or not, he's going to a school for the deaf, yet there's no curriculum for him to learn Irish Sign Language like you would learn English or Irish. None, even for a deaf child. So even for you and me then, going to secondary school, it would be very easy. We have the experts in Trinity College Dublin, in the deaf community and Dublin City University to put a curriculum there on the junior and leaving cert. There is a leaving cert applied subject. It's a limited subject, but at the same time, there is a base. And as we both know, the amount of languages that are now on the present Leaving Cert, Russian, Mandarin, Chinese, Japanese, Irish Sign Language is the third national language on the island of Ireland. So why can't we have a curriculum in that the experts are there? The curriculum would be easy to put together. It's something that would definitely help every deaf person. They meet you, and it's like me going to France on holidays. I might have studied French 20, 30 years ago, but it comes back to me when I go on holidays there. And then someone has studied Irish Sign Language, at least they'll have, the easy signs to remember, like, hello, how are you today? How are you feeling? You're going for a walk. You want me to go into the bank with you today? What you want? Do you want to talk about, the match last night? How you think, Dublin going now? So again, that stuff, that's easy. That's everyday talking, and that's the type. And that's one thing I know about languages. Let's teach the children sign language. We don't have to go through the complex grammar and structure we did with French, Spanish, or German in school. Teach the children to speak it, give them the history and deaf culture, and then when a language is spoken, whether it's signed or spoken, well, then it's alive. And our deaf community might feel greater citizens in their own country.
Absolutely. And it's very important to stress that it is an official language, like Irish and English and Irish Sign Language is official. So it should be a lot more accessible. Yes, absolutely. What can we do as educators and teachers and people in the community to support the deaf community in Ireland?
I suppose talk to your local TD, make sure your TD understands that there's 5,000 at least sign language users in the Republic of Ireland, and make sure that the Irish Sign Language Act is fully commenced. It is commenced, but it's not fully implemented, unfortunately. And look out for our deaf children. And where deaf children are in educational settings, or a deaf person is in an employment setting, let's make it possible for them to interact with their local communities, that they don't feel isolated. You know the statistics, Silvia.
Yeah.
Like a deaf person is, probably 10 times less likely to go to third level, 4 times less likely to have a job. The reading and literacy levels end up being very poor. And that's nothing got to do with the IQ or the intelligence of our deaf community. That's because the educational and employment systems are failing them.
And it's very important to stress that there's, as you say, higher levels of unemployment, poverty, mental health issues. So that's why, education and early intervention, but giving opportunities in education is so important. And then, Andrew, sometimes you talk about that you feel that your country is letting you down.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
I have a history degree, and I've loved history all my life, thanks to my primary and secondary school teachers. I had brilliant primary and secondary school teachers in history, and I look at our history. You go back to people like Daniel O'Connell, back to the Young Irelanders, the Fenians, Charles Stewart Parnell, John Redmond, Padraig Pearse, Joseph Plunkett, the people of 1916. They sacrificed themselves to emancipate our people, and they emancipated people that were not represented. I would feel if they taught some of their citizens today, 100 years after declaring a republic, people know this, you probably know from your native language, republic means public affair. This is a public affair. Our children are a public affair, and democratus means people rule. There's a pause button being pressed. We have brilliant legislators on this island, and people are pressing pause buttons behind desks, and they're defining a child's potential or an adult's potential for life. And you look back on even the great emancipators across history. It's up to you and me to tell the truth, and our children are being forgotten. And the great liberators, first of all, were liberators of truth. You look wherever they were, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Emmeline Pankhurst, all those people, they had to liberate the truth. And the truth is that special needs, disabled children are totally forgotten by this country at the moment. the carers, the volunteers, the charities. Our country is built on their backbone. Without carers of children and elderly, without volunteers, without the charity sector, we wouldn't have a country. But we give and give and give. We are a very generous people with our time, with our money, and with our whole being. But it hurts me deeply, Silvia, because I've given my whole life to public service and the country that I love with all of my heart and all of my soul and every part of who I am. Just doesn't want to give my son citizenship, and that's all I want. If this country loves my son and our nation falls in love with my son, well then he can love this country as much as I do. I remember reading the story. Thomas Francis Maher was in France, and a group of French women gave him the present Irish flag to bring back. He brought that flag here, and then he was banished from Ireland, sent to Australia. He made his way to America and fought in the American Civil War, emancipating, trying to free another enslaved people in the American Civil War. And that's what Irish people are about. We're about freeing, we're about liberation, we're about honest truth and citizenship. And it's just soul destroying to think that this country doesn't want our children.
Yeah, and I think that it's something that you don't realize until you experience it yourself. And I suppose you and I are experiencing this as parents. And we are both parents of young boys. My son is 12 years of age, full of energy, full of life, loving the world, loving life, loving people, and how difficult inclusion is. And we have, again, like children that are very capable, and how difficult it is. And the minute that things don't work well in inclusive environments, very quickly they are put back into their little box. You know, they don't belong here, or we don't have the resources, and it is really hard and really frustrating for us, who obviously as families, you know, we want the best for our children, and we're very hopeful. We are very aware of the difficulties, and again, I'm thinking of the world of autism, like for example, adults with autism, only 10% of adults with autism are employed, and that's not what I want for my child, and that's not what you want for your children. And we know if we give them the opportunities, and if they are in the right environment, they can blossom. And I think that we're asking for very little. And I'm saying that because sometimes there's people, as you were talking about, carers, and I know that teachers and SNAs, and the support that we want is actually not that expensive. And it can have huge benefits because, again, like our children, they have so much to give back as well to society. So
you invest at the front. It'll definitely save you hundreds of thousands, possibly millions. You think about how much money your son or my son needs up front. 5,000 or 6,000 euros on top of what they're getting per year at the moment, on top of whatever care needs they might have now. And that could save the state a whole year of disability allowance for 40, 50 years. And then they're paying in and playing an active part. And all we need is the bridge builders, Silvia. They're there. Those bridge builders are already in the society. Those experts, those specialists are there. But it's giving those bridge builders the opportunity to build that bridge to your child's potential. And why that pause button has been pressed, I cannot understand. And it's often been pressed by people who have no understanding, no education in the special education sector. And if they have, they still do not have the expert knowledge of the parents. We are the experts. And we live it every day along with our children. You've read the research on autism. I've read the research on deaf education. Come and talk to us. We want to open the door to our child's potential. We don't want our child on disability allowance for the rest of their lives. I want him in active employment. I want him contributing to this country the same as his three brothers. And he can do that. But we need the bridge builders to come and help us build a bridge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we finish the interview, there's something that I would like to ask you. I've been an educator in special education for 20 years. And all these years I was thinking that, you know, I was the teacher, or I am the teacher, I am the educator. And now I'm beginning to realize I'm the one who's been taught all along. And I'd like, if you don't mind, to share with us, what have you learned from Callum?
Everything. Basically, he's given me a beautiful language, a beautiful culture, a beautiful people. He's taught me that a person that had little faith in himself about learning other languages, he's taught me that I can communicate every day in a language, and that I could one day be worthy of being part of that bigger community. And he's taught me that this world is for everyone. He's taught me that I love all my boys, and he's taught me that I have abilities that I thought I never had. He's given me a confidence to do things I never would have thought impossible for me as an adult. My 4 boys have been an absolute gift to me, and I don't always feel worthy of that gift to be there for. His smile just is enough to lighten up every day, and just him, giving you that fatherly hug or kiss or whatever, just is enough to charge a battery for 100,000 years.
Absolutely. And you are a great advocate. And as you are aware, we all saw you guys in the Late Late Show when we fell in love with all your family. We really want to support you. I don't know if there's anything in particular that we can do to support Callum moving on to secondary education and having what he needs to be able to access full inclusion in education.
I can't ask for much, Silvia. Every one of us is carrying our own journey and on our own road. All I would say is do what you're doing, Silvia. Learn sign language. If people across the country want to do anything, you heard Calum and Donnacha, and I was delighted with Ryan Tubridy that night. He focused on the boys, and they're both brilliant storytellers. I was a very proud father, and just break that isolation for your friend Brian. Break that isolation for Callum. If they saw someone able to sign to them inside in the bank, inside in the shop. It was lovely there the other day. Callum and I went for coffee and from and there was a lady inside in the coffee shop was signing with Callum. And, he was so happy to see a woman he never met, didn't know her ever, and just to see her signing with him. It put, a smile on his face. We have a battle in front of us as a family. I know the battle we have in front of us, and it's not a battle that's easy, but I can only ask for people's thoughts and prayers, and people have been given that absolutely to a brilliant degree. The support we've got through beautiful letters, beautiful emails, beautiful posts online, your support and people across the country. We can't ask for any more from people. People have given a lot, but embrace our beautiful sign language, embrace our beautiful deaf community, and make them feel like part of one community.
You know that we're here for you anytime that you want a platform like to share your thoughts. You even have me thinking, what can I do to contribute to all of that? I want to make communities more inclusive for everyone, but you've got me thinking there. So I want to do something for the deaf community to, again, contribute to build bridges. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best, and we'll definitely be in touch. And we hope that we can open the doors to secondary education for Callum. Thank you so much.
And to all the people who will watch this later. So thank you. I'm very happy to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.